Good morning, everyone. I'm Tabitha with Tabs on Tap. Good morning. Happy Monday. Hope everyone had a really fantastic weekend. It's kind of funny. My new time, as you guys mostly know, is 7:30 a.m. and I was really pushing it to even start on time at 7:30, but that was just user error. I didn't turn my sound system on. I'm like, I've got everything together, but I had to go back and you have to do things in certain steps if one before the other or nothing comes together. Well, I'll get it together one of these days. But today's episode 59. It's crazy to think that I'm already at episode 59. Who would have ever thought, right? Oh, it's going to be a long week. I'll tell you that. We've got a lot going on, lots to talk about. Can't wait to catch up with Colonel Joe Adams on Wednesday. Looking forward to his take on things that are playing out. There's a lot of things playing out. We're going to be talking about what is going on. Why isn't media covering anything that's taking place between Ukraine and Russia? Or why aren't they talking, even Fox National, why aren't they talking about some of the statements being released by NATO members? Good morning, Dottie. It is Thanksgiving week. That is Thanksgiving week. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Dottie, because a couple of different things is one, unfortunately, I will not have a show tomorrow. I will replay one of the episodes, probably one of the episodes with Colonel Joe Adams. Oh, you know what? That's right. I can't because it's 2 hours long. I'm going to replay a show. It might be today's show. And tomorrow, I haven't been able to replay shows. And the reason why the show is now only going to be an hour and a half, that's so I can replay shows. The streaming service I use, they will not allow me to replay a 2 hour show unless I want to pay them $1,500. So I'm not going to do that just to replay a show, which you guys have already heard. But if I keep it at an hour and a half, I can replay it at no fee additional to what I'm already paying them. Good morning, Karen. I know that's a lot of housekeeping and behind the scenes info that a lot of shows don't talk about, but I'm pretty transparent and fairly informal. And so I just want to make sure you guys understand why I switched from 2 hours to an hour and a half, why we're starting at 7:30 a.m. and go till 9 a.m. And quite honestly, an hour and a half daily podcast is more than enough. There's only so many things to talk about. And so, yes, it's going to be Thanksgiving week. I'm very excited. I went out and did all my Thanksgiving shopping yesterday. Hopefully, you guys are getting things lined out as well, especially with so much going on in the world. I know it's hard to get focused sometimes on things, but I think Thanksgiving's a good distraction. We have Christmas right around the corner. I won't be doing a show on Thanksgiving Day, but I will be the Friday after. I know some shows take off 2 days. I'm just going to do the one day for Thanksgiving. I will not be here tomorrow because I have to work. As you guys know, I work at anti-piracy and I have a very important screening tomorrow morning that I have no choice but to work, which I'm happy to have the work, not complaining about that. But either way, I hope you guys did have a good weekend. I'll tell you what, today, if you're in the St. Louis area, I'm not sure where you guys are all at. This might be our last nice, beautiful day before winter. We may not have another day like today or like we had yesterday, possibly until springtime. So if there's anything you need to do today, today would be the day to get out and do it. If you have any type of winterizing that needs to take place. Me, I was out shopping yesterday for Thanksgiving and some Christmas things. And so today I'm going to have to take a little bit of time out because I have to winterize my chicken coop. Good morning, Linda. For any of you that have chickens, as you know, we need to do our best to keep them sheltered and warm during the winter. Last year, I was lucky. I made it through the winter, didn't have any frostbite or any other problems. And I buy these really thick, clear shower curtains, and I put them all around my run. But my run's really big, for a run. It's like 20 feet by 13 feet. So I have to go out and put these curtains all around and secure them at the top and secure them at the bottom, make sure nothing can get under them. I've got a little pet safe uh, heater board that can go inside the coop. I didn't put one in the coop last year because I think they all huddled together anyway. So I didn't really think it was necessary. But this year I may do that. I did buy one last year, but it felt like it was just too hot. So I bought a new one this year and it's just barely warm. So I think that'll be good enough this year. Good morning, Ryan. Good morning, Allison. Lots to talk about today, no question about it. I wish it was all fun and games and holiday stuff because, Christmas is, of course, right around the corner. Thanksgiving this week. Hopefully, you guys will all have a fun, happy holiday for Thanksgiving and no family fights over politics or anything else crazy. I know me, most of my family, we just don't, I see my family all the time. We don't really talk too much about politics. Some of us agree, some of us don't, and it's not worth fighting over, that's for sure. Good morning, Allison, Tammy, Jerry, whoever. Allison, red light helps them produce more eggs in winter. Yes. And I did have a red light last winter, and I'm going to do that again this winter. I had no problem with egg production last winter, although right now I have zero, pretty much zero egg production. A couple of my chickens are molting. One of them I had to separate for a little while, had to integrate her back in, which thankfully it took a while, but it happened. And I have one olive egger who's laying every other, maybe every 3 days, something like that. I hope the others catch up, but sometimes they have to take a break, and that's okay. And what's crazy though is this is the first time in a year, close to a year, that I've had to purchase eggs. And the prices of of eggs are absolutely crazy, crazy. Yesterday, I went to Aldi of all places. They have some little cute Christmas sets there. I went by there to pick one up, and I thought, "Oh, I need eggs since I'm not I don't have any laying chickens right now." So I went back and bought a dozen eggs. Eggs right now, even at Aldi, were $5 a dozen. I think it was like 4.97, which is absolutely insane. Remember when eggs were a dollar, less than a dollar, 67 cents a dozen? I remember them being like 2 something a dozen. Now, $5 a dozen. That's absolutely crazy, but we know why. Of course, you know what they're telling us, I should say, not necessarily what's true, is they claim, of course, that it's avian flu that is wiping out chicken populations. Well, it's not the avian flu that's wiping out chicken populations. It's your local government because and some other folks because what ends up happening is that let's just say if my chickens, one of them develops avian flu. Now, how the government even finds out, I don't know. I guess some people report it. But let's just say one of my chickens dies from avian flu and somehow, the government finds out. Maybe I'm a dummy and I call and tell them. Well, what ends up happening is that they will go around a 30-mile radius around your home, and any chickens in your area or ducks or other different types of poultry, mainly chickens, they will take them, they will seize them, or they will just euthanize them there on your property. So that's within 30 miles. And I belong to these different chicken groups, and people are talking about it constantly. Oh, one of my neighbors, somebody, 20 miles away had avian flu, so they came out and wiped my flock out. This one poor woman, she had, I don't know, a couple hundred chickens on her property. She had, I think, 500 acres, and they took all of her chickens. It's crazy. And not to mention that, but remember last week there was I don't know if it was a farm or a processing plant, a place where they have large numbers of producing chickens. I don't know if these were cage free or not. I'm not sure. But anyway, there was an explosion. 20,000 chickens were killed in this explosion. And we've seen all these processing plants, food plants, farms burn. And it's no wonder that the prices continue to go up. And I really don't think that avian flu is the reason why. I really don't. We'll get into that another day, but it's something to keep an eye on because it's absolutely insane to have to pay $5 for 1 dozen eggs at a discount store on top of that. And there was a limit of 2. I'm like, are people going crazy buying the eggs at $5 a dozen? So you limit them to only 2? I'm like, seriously, that's crazy. I think a lot of it too, the government, they want to tell you that eggs are bad for you because, oh, they're so high in cholesterol. Eggs are not bad for you. That's a lie. Captain Crunch, they say, is now a very healthy food. If you've seen some of these new food pyramids, Captain Crunch, I believe it's Captain Crunch is on there. Oh, that's healthy. Feed your kids Captain Crunch, but God forbid, don't feed them eggs because that's bad for you. And we're going to get into that too because we're going to be talking about cockroach milk later in the show. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. It's crazy. Something I want to throw out there that's kind of, it's hard to talk about because it's such a sad situation that took place. this weekend in the St. Louis area. I'm not sure if you guys have heard this story. Colin Brown, he is a local young hockey player, 16 years old. Some of you know I'm somewhat involved in the hockey community. They're a big in the St. Louis area. I would think in most areas, the local hockey community is one big family. Really good people, really good people. And one of their own, Colin Brown, 16 years old, Saturday night had been at a hockey game with his dad, plays for CBC. He was at a hockey game, and on their way home, they were driving down the area, Highway 55 in Loughborough, if you guys know where that is over in St. Louis City, and there was a rolling gun battle that went right past them. And when this happened, Cullen was shot in the neck. And I'm not going to get into the details. I actually didn't even plan on saying that. He was shot. He is in critical condition. I haven't seen any updates yet this morning. I know he was in surgery the last I heard last night. It's a very critical situation. It's highly unfortunate that we have these types of situations, not just in St. Louis, but in other cities around the country. And people want to say, that it's not as dangerous as we think it is, but no, it actually is. And I believe in the power of prayer. So I do hope that all of you will pray for Colin Brown. He is really needs to be he really needs he really needs prayers right now. Prayers for strength that he can get through this. Again haven't heard any updates this morning. I am hoping, praying that he does recover from these injuries. His family, of course, completely devastated. The entire hockey community, completely devastated. Last night I talked to one of the coaches, and just very upsetting to everyone. So please say a prayer for Colin Brown. And in the meantime, think about the city of St. Louis and wherever you might live and crime rates. Here in the city of St. Louis, they want to tell us that crime rates are down, but they're not. Crime rates are actually up. Where else is it where you have a city that is so dangerous that you can't even drive on the highways? This was at 10:30 p.m. on Saturday night at Loughborough and Highway 55. It's not unusual in the St. Louis area to have rolling gun battles. Witnessed two rolling gun battles in the St. Louis area. That was more like around Richmond Heights near the Galleria, a couple of years ago. It is absolutely outrageous. How is this okay? Why do people keep voting Democrats into these positions in St. Louis City? Most people, of course, in St. Louis City don't vote at all. And most of them don't even know this happened. If you go right now and you ask people in the city of St. Louis if they know what happened to Colin Brown, no, they don't know. They don't know. They don't watch these people. It's sad. A lot of them don't watch the news. They're not going out and voting. They don't understand that crime is up. I had a big argument back and forth with some people over the past couple weeks who on some St. Louis City site where I was talking about the crime and drive-by shootings and rolling gun battles. And they're like, oh, that doesn't happen. Go back out to West County where you live. I'm like, A, I don't live in West County. B, I lived in the city for many, many years. I know very well how the city works and the crime rates in the city. And I've witnessed many shots being fired back and forth. I've never witnessed anyone being shot, but I've certainly seen them shooting back and forth at each other. It's absolutely insane. I have driven past after someone was just shot many times actually, because the St. Louis City is crazy. St. Louis City is not very big. I'm from the Chicago area. Chicago's a big city. St. Louis City is small. There's a reason why it's called the deadliest city in the country, because per capita, per residence in the city of St. Louis, when you have 3 homicides a year, that's a lot. That's a lot, not to mention all of the sexual assaults, all of the thefts, all of the armed robberies, the home invasions. I really wish that people in the city would just vote for safety, because now we have the 16-year-old Colin Brown fighting for his life, fighting for his life. It's terrible. Innocent kid, good kid. His father was driving when this rolling gun battle happened. So please take a moment, if you can, out of your day and say a prayer for Colin Brown. He certainly does need his family needs your prayers as well. Lots of other things to talk about today. Obviously, I want to talk about Russia. That's extremely important. This morning, one thing I like about X is that you can send messages to people. Not direct, well, you can directly, but you can post messages to anyone's account. Doesn't mean they see it or that they care, but I am really aggravated today because one of the first things that I saw last night when I was scrolling through some different news items, Mike Walls. I thought I would like Mike Waltz, quite honestly. He is a congressman from Florida. He is the person Trump has selected to be our national director of intelligence. And I thought, well, that's a really good choice. Now I think I might be backtracking on that because something, and I'm going to play a clip for you here in just a moment. Something Mike Waltz said, two things he said really, really gave me concern. One of those things that he said that gave me concern, and I'm going to play that clip for you, is that we are on the same team as Biden, that the Trump team is talking to Jake Sullivan. Mike Walls, is talking to Jake Sullivan, of course, Biden's national director of intelligence, and we're all in the same team. We're not all in the same team. And then Mike Walls tries to excuse away these long range missiles going into Russia. He says, well, yes, we're sending long range missiles into Russia, but they're only striking, strategic military installations. Okay, it doesn't matter. Does that matter to Putin? No, no. It's an escalation. It's an escalation. So now all of a sudden, we're supporting Biden policies. And so I went on X this morning, and I'll probably post this on my Facebook page later because I think it's important for people to know. But anyway, I sent and tagged them all in a message. I'm like, seriously, why are we supporting Biden policies? If we wanted Biden policies, we would have voted for Biden, right? I'm trying to trust the process. I really am. But when I hear Mike Walls, who is potentially going to be our director of intelligence, saying that he's been talking to Jake Sullivan and they agree and they're part of the same team and that we support long range missiles going into Russia, I am not okay with that. I am absolutely not okay with that. You can hear part of this statement with your own ears.
And I also want to be clear on one thing, Jillian. Jake Sullivan and I have had discussions. We've met. For our adversaries out there that think this is a time of opportunity, that they can play one administration off the other, they're wrong. And we are hand in glove. We are one team with the United States in this transition.
That is good to hear.
Okay, well, first of all, your adversaries are probably not watching Fox National. So you should be speaking to us, the people that might be watching Fox National. And no, we are not on the same team. And can our adversaries, I don't know, who are our adversaries? Can they play each administration off each other? Yes, because we're very different. We are very different. We want different things. So yes, they can. And we can't go on to Fox National and say, oh, we're part of the same team. And Putin or China or whoever it is they're talking to are going to back off and say, oh, we can't mess with them. They're part of the same team. When we already know, everybody knows we're not part of the same team. I'm very upset about it. And yes, Allison, Sullivan is a snake. And Allison says, I am not comfortable with Dr. Oz in charge of Medicare. He promoted the COVID vaccine and is in favor of transgender surgery. I am not a fan of Dr. Oz myself, quite honestly. And I was kind of surprised. Well, I guess I wasn't surprised by that appointment because he did come out and support Trump so heavily. And even though Dr. Oz did promote the COVID vaccine, he has also promoted a lot of other beneficial things that you don't hear. And he's gotten a lot of flack over that from liberals. But overall, no, I do not want to see him as part of Trump's administration. But what can we do? But there's a couple of different things that are troubling to me, outside of what Mike Waltz said. And that definitely troubles me because no, we are not on the same team. We're not. And I don't know if he said that because he's just hoping that we have an easier transition. Is he saving face? Who is he talking to? Because he's not talking to us. I think that was a huge misstep. And I think there's a lot of people who agree with me. As people continue to hear these statements, I think more people will agree. And I am trying to trust the process. I really am. And I like the guy. I've always liked Mike Waltz. I think he's been a fantastic congressman for Florida. No question about it. But I absolutely 100% do not support sending long-range missiles into Ukraine. I don't care if we are hitting military bases or not. As a matter of fact, now we're sending other missiles. We're sending these joint to air surface missiles, which we're going to talk about here in a bit. also, we just allowed under the radar. I haven't even seen this on the news. MSM, they're not talking about any of this stuff. So now we have other long range missiles that we have now okayed for Ukraine to use. And I'm going to get into that in more detail in just a moment. But I'm hearing some things that I'm not very happy about. And no, we are not on the same team. No, we are not absolutely not okay with long range missiles going into Russia. I am not okay with any escalation going forward. I Trump is supposed to be the president of peace. So how can we be okay with long range missiles going into Russia? I really wish that Mike Walls would have came on to Fox National and instead he would have said, you know what, we're going to do our best to make this as an easy transition. But no, we're not on the same playing field. We don't agree with their policies. We promote peace. And when Donald Trump takes office, he is going to come up with a peaceful agreement. His statement instead maybe made me feel like when Trump comes into now, of course, this wasn't Trump speaking. This was Mike Waltz, and maybe he didn't even have permission to say this. I don't know. But his statement made me feel like even when Trump comes into office, we are still going to continue to escalate against Russia. And that I am 100% against. I am for peace. I was just reading a report over in Ukraine, 906,000 plus troops, service members have died in this battle between Russia and Ukraine. And I'm sure on Russia, their numbers are probably very similar, very similar. Can you imagine that? Nearly a million lives lost on the Ukraine side in this battle. And yet we want to continue it on. We want to keep fighting. And, all of this blood is on our hands because there is no way Ukraine could have sustained and kept on going if it weren't for NATO, United States and Western countries giving them billions of dollars, by the way, which 30 to 50% of it can't even be accounted for. There is no way they would have continued going on against Russia. I mean, it's Russia fighting again, and now North Korea fighting against all of NATO. It's already Russia fighting against all of NATO. And that continues to increase every day, every day. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of talk of what's going on. France sent over Scalp missiles, more long-range missiles. So now France is in the mix. We have Germany. German's president Stolz, he said, we need to do whatever is necessary to keep the peace. He's not falling for it. Now we, the United States, they did this under the cover of darkness. We've not heard anything about this. At least with the landmines, we were a little more transparent. I don't know about transparency. I don't watch MSM, but when I talk to other people, they tell me, well, when I watch television news, they don't talk about any of this stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, I read the news and I read news from a lot of different sources, a lot of boots on the ground sources, and that's where I get a lot of info. I don't know what MSM is talking about. I have no idea, but it doesn't sound like they're talking about any of this stuff. That's for sure. So now we sent over Joint Air to Surface Standoff Long Range Missiles, JASSM cruise missiles, if you're familiar with these types of weaponry. They plan to target 30 of Russia's Air Force bases, 30 bases, 30 military bases in Russia. Now, how do you think Putin's going to feel about that? We've given them more missiles. France giving them missiles. Canada, they're jumping in with support, of course, for Ukraine. All of these different countries coming together. Now, in Germany, I can't recall the name of their missile. They have said at this point they are not giving missiles to Ukraine. However, there's a lot of movement in Germany where they want to oust the current president. They have an election coming up, and they're claiming that if this other guy wins, which won't be until after Trump takes office, then this guy will send missiles. I think whatever is going to happen between Ukraine and Russia is going to happen long before Germany has a new president. But that's a really big concern. It's a really big concern. I don't know why. I don't know why we're doing this. In Ukraine, they fired 10 more ATACMS into Russia just this weekend, just yesterday. 10 more. I think that amounts to what? Almost 30 long-range missiles they have now fired into Russia. And of course, Russia, as you guys know, fired the medium-range Oreshnik missile back into Ukraine, which, by the way, completely obliterated the area. You know, if you can imagine that Oreshnik is a nuclear capable missile and it was fired into Ukraine, and it can hold up to 6 warheads. And thankfully they were not nuclear warheads, of course, but the devastation that it caused, now that was into a military area, military facility, but just think the devastation that it caused. And if that would have been a nuclear warhead, it would be unbelievable. It would really, the devastation would be unbelievable. And I don't think anyone is taking it lightly, you know, as to what happened. And, you know, I always wonder, well, what is the, what is NATO thinking? What is, you know, what is Europe thinking? What do European leaders think? Do they look forward to a time of peace? You know, they've bankrupted their country supporting Ukraine. Are they going to be okay with Trump working out a peace deal? Are they going to be okay saying, okay, yes, we've given all of this money to Ukraine, we've bankrupted our countries, but let's just let Russia go ahead and win and let them take this eastern region that they've already taken over, and then Ukraine can keep what's left. You know, and a lot of people in Ukraine, if you go and look at the reports, what Ukrainians are saying, believe it or not, Ukrainians are going back into, when people remember how people fled this eastern region like Donbass and Mariupol and those areas, the people are going back home. Now Russia controls those areas, but the people have left Kiev and these other outlying areas, and they've gone back. I read that 150,000 Ukrainians have returned back to these areas because they are perfectly fine being under area controlled by Russia. Of course, most of them are Russian speaking and sympathize with Russia, but they are returning back to their homes. Mariupol is being rebuilt. Despite all of this fighting, Mariupol and some of these areas are being rebuilt by Russia. And these people are going back home. And so I don't know that Europe, how they're going to handle this. Are they going to be okay? We're just saying, okay, despite the fact that we've spent all this money, let's just go ahead and give these areas to Putin and be done with it. I don't personally see that happening. Allison says NATO would love a war. Yes. And nobody who promoted the CV protocols should be part of the administration. I agree. But if you think about it, Trump kind of did too. You know, I've got some videos of Trump telling people, hey, it's okay, it's safe. You know, I wouldn't promote it if it weren't safe. And there's a lot of people who don't like Trump because of that. I've come across some of those people. So I think this is a little bit of insight into what NATO believes. Now, of course, I'm going to show a video to you here in just a second that might give you an idea. And I've been watching this. I went back and watched it 3 times because I'm like, okay, so European leaders are anxious over a Trump administration. It sounds to me, you can judge for yourself, it sounds to me as if they're anxious because they know he wants peace and it's going to change a lot of foreign policy so that they can have peace. Maybe they're nervous about that change. Maybe they're so used to the deep state running things and the deep state being so for war and against peace that they're really not sure what to think. But I mean, it's hard for me to believe that any leader wouldn't want peace. So take a look at this really quick, and then we're going to break this down a little bit better.
Many of us have hoped that there would be a game changer produced by the American citizens, namely an outcome of the US presidential elections when the candidate, which is a pro-peace one, would win. Now, based on all this, we have, of course, been very happy with the outcome of the US presidential elections. Not too many governments in Europe. On Monday, we have had the first Foreign Affairs Council meeting in the European Union since the US elections. I can tell you that everybody was pretty nervous. And if I look at the reason, I might say that these guys all remember what they have said about President Trump during the last 8 years. But this is the smaller problem. The bigger problem is that President Trump remembers as well. And I understand that these European leaders now are not quite certain about the strategy they have to follow in the future.
Okay, so let's think about that. This guy is the foreign policy director for Hungary, and he's talking about a meeting they've had. They've had some emergency meetings lately to talk about what's taking place between Europe and Russia and all of the escalation. In fact, NATO has an emergency meeting tomorrow, which we definitely will have to talk about for a moment. And so what he's saying is that European leaders are nervous, but I'm confused. Are they nervous about policy change, or are they nervous because these leaders look at the UK, look at what some of these people have said about Donald Trump. It has been absolutely horrendous. It has been very clear that they absolutely do not support Donald Trump. But now all of a sudden he's going to be the United States president again. And they are again going to have diplomatic relationships with Trump. Are they nervous because they know how he feels? Now what if we start tossing around? We know that Donald Trump does not want to be part of NATO. I am firmly believe that part of the reason they came out against him so hard in 2020 and why we ended up with almost 20 million votes that didn't exist is because Trump has talked about withdrawing from the UN and withdrawing from NATO. And now I'm hearing, back talk about, well, what if the United States withdraws from NATO and joins BRICS? I find that hard to believe, but at the same time, Donald Trump and the leaders of Europe do not see eye to eye. These people hate him. They absolutely hate him. So why do we want to be part of NATO when we're putting it, or the UN, we're putting in the majority of funds into both? Other countries, you in the UN, they're not even paying at all. They're supposed to pay, I think it's 2% of their GDP supposed to go into UN, and they're not paying their fees. But we, the United States, we have to pay our fee, and we're making up for some of these other folks. So why don't we just withdraw? But then if we withdraw, then what? Do we stand alone? Do we need to join BRICS for safety? I mean, you're kind of one or the other. There's plenty of countries, of course, who are not part of NATO, who are not part of BRICS, but they're all choosing sides. You can go online and do some research and see, there's around 60 countries right now who have applied to join BRICS. BRICS put on hold all new applications for now, but eventually they're going to start accepting new countries. And it is very much going to be, the world is going to be completely divided, 100% divided. They already are, but legally, they're going to be divided because all of these countries are going to join BRICS. And it's going to come down to, you're either BRICS or you're NATO, one or the other. There is no country going to be standing alone. So what side will we choose? I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I'm curious if people are for or against the United States staying in NATO, or for or against the United States breaking away from NATO, and then for or against us joining BRICS. Because think about this strategically. If we join BRICS, then we are going to be allies of Russia and China and Iran and all of these other BRICS countries who are very powerful countries right now because we have bankrupted ourselves. What are we? $36 trillion in debt. We haven't been at a surplus since 2001. As a matter of fact, I'm showing that in 2023, we spent $6.16 trillion. That's what our government spent. But we only had coming in 4.47 trillion. So obviously we're at a deficit. We are nearly bankrupt. Elon Musk even said this weekend, we're bankrupt. We don't have any money. We're at a deficit. What are we going to do? And of course they are trying to cut down on waste, cut down on government expenses, which we don't need. And there's so much government waste. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to make sure I report on all of the government waste as I see it come through. One of the things we're wasting money on, $15 billion taxpayer dollars, to pay for 7,967 government buildings that are empty. There's no one there because COVID happened. All these people started working from home and they've never returned back to the office. And these are government buildings. Think about that, nearly 8,000 buildings where there's no one no one works there. But yet we continue to pay for the upkeep of these buildings. We pay for the heats and the air conditioning, the heat bills alone, by the way. This doesn't include air conditioning, it doesn't include upkeep. The heating alone of these nearly 8,000 buildings is $15 billion. $15 billion, that's crazy. And so we've got to cut down on government waste. Jay says, I don't think he will choose either. And the United States has been the cash register of NATO, yes. And good morning, Annette. And Allison says NATO is an arm of the military-industrial complex. NATO was established, of course, to keep Russia from expanding. And at this point, NATO, I think, should disband. We don't, or we should just leave NATO because we have nothing in common with Europe. Europe, in their ridiculous foreign policies, is what holds us down. And Trump, as is more in line with BRICS policies. And I know that so many of you probably think I'm crazy for saying that. And if you do, it's because you probably don't really know what some of their policies are. And I'm not talking about China, but let's say Russia. Russia is very traditionalist, very traditionalist. And another day we'll break down the Russian policies, but they are very traditionalist. They do not put up with terror, any type of terror activity. Putin, as a matter of fact, has made some statements that said, hey, if you come to our country and you attack our people, if there is a terrorist attack in our country, not only will we hunt you down, the terrorist, but we will hunt your entire family down and we will do away with all of you. And I think he absolutely means it. And guess what? They don't have terror attacks for the most part in Russia, not true terrorist attacks anyway. And let's see here. Jay says, I bet the amount of waste is beyond comprehension. It is. Paul, good morning, Paul. Building off of Jay's statement is the only thing we have in common is that they love our money. Of course, Europe loves our money. They've all bankrupted themselves. They don't have any money. Remember last year, we had German citizens worried that they were not going to be able to keep up with their power in the winter, and they were all hoarding wood and worried about keeping their homes heated with wood because they sanctioned Russia to such a degree that Russia wasn't supplying natural gas to them anymore. I mean, the policies of European countries are absolutely ridiculous. They hurt themselves. You know that? Our policies against Russia hurt us. And under a Trump government, under a Biden government, it's extremely liberal. I mean, socially liberal, very, very liberal. And under a Trump administration, it's much more conservative, socially conservative. And Russia is very much like a Trump administration would be, which is very conservative. And again, I have no problem at all with gay people. If you belong to the LGBTQ, by the way, I've noticed they've taken off the Q lately. I don't know why. If you belong to the community, that's perfectly fine. I don't care. I support all people in your way to live. I am probably a little bit more socially liberal myself in that way, that I think that people should live however you want to live. If you're not harming anyone, then live however you want. I don't even need to know. I don't go around and tell people that I'm heterosexual and that I only have relationships with men. I don't want anybody to come and tell me that they have relationships with the same sex, because guess what? I don't care. You do you, I'll do me. Don't care. In Russia, they're not anti-LGBTQ. They do allow people in Russia to be gay and to carry on whatever kind of lifestyle they want. They do not allow them to propagandize it. They don't allow them to promote it. They don't allow them to try to talk children into becoming part of that lifestyle. And I think that's more in line with what a Trump administration is. It's okay to be gay and to live your life and have your freedoms and have your gay rights, but don't try to talk to the children about it. Don't try to recruit people into your lifestyle. Just live and be free. And I know that Russia made some rules last week where they don't allow gay couples to adopt children, and now they're not allowing children to be adopted by countries that allow same-sex marriage. They don't allow countries to adopt children from Russia that also, I'm trying to think of how the wording went. there was something a little bit more to it. It was more than same-sex marriage. It was something to do with promoting countries that promote, oh, I know what it was, countries that promote minors to have transsexual surgery. So that was something that they were talking about. Those are very conservative policies, very conservative policies. And so those are, some things to think about in whether or not we are more in line with BRICS countries, or are we more in line with European countries? I think liberals in our country are more aligned with European countries. Conservatives are probably more aligned with BRICS countries. And it's kind of crazy to think that our country could be divided by people who could go the way of NATO or people who could go the way of BRICS. So that's something obviously very, very in depth, very deep, that we'll have to talk about on another day and another time. But there's a lot going on. There's a lot of talk about Russia, and this is a threat directly from Russia, from what I understand, where they have threatened to shut off the power grids, to use hackers to take down the power grids in Europe. Now, I have not heard about this happening in the United States. I'm also hearing a lot of back channel reports that China is preparing hackers. What are they preparing hackers to do? I know they're not going to be doing it to Russia, that's for sure. Who are they going to be attacking? Is it going to be us? Is it going to be Europe? I don't know. I know it's not going to be Russia, though. Paul says, once we become energy independent, we should pull out of NATO and then start selling natural gas and petroleum to Europe, undercutting Russia prices. I absolutely agree. We absolutely should. And we have the ability to be energy independent. We saw that under Trump's last administration. We can be energy independent again. It's actually very easy for us. But of course, is maybe part of the reason why we're holding on to Ukraine, for part of those reasons, at least part of, everything we do is about money, isn't it? Everything we do is about money. And we know, and I wish I could recall who it was yesterday, an official person who said, this war is not about Russia. This war is about holding on to the minerals that are in Ukraine. That Ukraine, not only are they the breadbasket of the world, but they are very rich, wealthy in minerals. And that this war is really about a battle to keep those minerals. And this person was suggesting, and maybe that's what Mike Waltz's statement was about. This person was suggesting that Trump would be crazy to not continue the fight against Russia so that we can have the minerals of Ukraine. And we also know, because I talked to you guys about this last week, that Zelensky, when he spoke to Donald Trump, he tried to make a deal with him. And he said, if you support us, if you support Ukraine in the same way the Biden administration has, and you help us win this war against Russia, I will give you our minerals. We will become one with the minerals. Could that make a difference? I don't know. Something is going on. Something is going on. Because as I said earlier, Congressman Mike Waltz said, you guys heard the video, that he spoke with Jake Sullivan, and that we are one team with the Biden administration. And again, we are not one team. We're definitely not one team. And again, he said that, the long-range missiles that Ukraine is firing into Russia, they're just hitting military infrastructure. Not a big deal. Yeah, it is a big deal. So what exactly is happening here? Is the Trump administration going to continue the war, now that we know it's about minerals, against Russia, or is he going to create peace? I want to know. I want to know what the answer is to that. I don't know when we'll know or if we'll know, but and should we, the people, feel the same way? I'm always kind of stuck between that hard place. Like, yes, I want us to have minerals. I think we have enough minerals in our own country, quite honestly, to keep us going. Does that mean we might have to take some private land to get those minerals? Possibly. We have to start making decisions as to what's best for our country. Are we better off to mine for the minerals here in our own country, even if that means taking over some private land? Or are we better off fighting against Russia to take the minerals that Ukraine has? It's a really tough decision, I think. And let's see here. Jay says, Trump matter of factly said he would end the war. He did say he would end the war, Jay. Trump said, and we've talked about this a few times on the show, Trump said he would create peace. He has very plainly said that. And it's already been stated multiple times that when Trump takes office, the deal that will be made is that Russia can keep that 30% that he's already taken, and they continue to make progress, by the way, that when Trump comes into office, Russia will keep what they have and Ukraine will keep what they have remaining. Zelensky will remain president, and everybody will go about peacefully. I don't think Europe's going to let that happen. There's that emergency meeting with NATO tomorrow. What's going to happen in that meeting tomorrow at NATO? We'll have an update on this on Wednesday when Colonel Joe Adams joins us. As you guys know, if you were watching earlier, I'm not going to have a show tomorrow because unfortunately duty calls and I have to work. But on Wednesday, we're going to update what took place during that NATO meeting because one of two things is going to be decided. NATO is either going to decide that, hey, we've put too much money into this war to lose. We want the minerals that Ukraine has. We cannot afford to lose this war against Russia. If that happens, if that's their decision, then we are going to end up in World War III. There is no question about it because there is no other way to beat Russia than to enter into a World War III. So NATO is going to be making that decision tomorrow. Or is NATO going to say, option B, let's go ahead and promote peace. Let's let Russia keep what they already have. Let's accept Zelensky into NATO to keep him happy. Let him hold on to the area of land he has. And we'll just all go about our way and we'll wipe the losses clean. Oh, we made a mistake. It's a done deal. Let's move forward. I don't know. One of those two things are going to happen. And if I had to bet my life on it, my life would be betted on World War III. Because you know what? Now that we know that this war is about minerals and it's not about Russian aggression or Russia necessarily taking territory, it's about us keeping the minerals and not allowing Russia to have them. That's what this is about. Now I even see more likely the situation that we end up in a very serious war because we are not going to let go. We're not going to let go of Ukraine. And I don't even know if Trump can stop what's going to happen. I don't know if Trump is going to let go of Ukraine now that we have heard some information that the war is actually about minerals and nothing else. I don't think Europe's just going to say, oh, we just spent all these billions of dollars and lost all these lives. Some of our special forces, over there have lost their life, and we're just going to let it go. I don't see it happening, and I'm preparing. I don't know about you guys. I'm stocking up. Matter of fact, today I'm going to go and pick up. I found a large cast iron Dutch oven on Facebook Marketplace. I'm going to go pick that up today. I'm preparing. I already have. If something happened right at this very minute, I'm perfectly prepared to cook outside. If our power grid goes down, I'm perfectly fine to cook outside. But I want to have something a little bit more formal set up. In Finland, the women are preparing. There are women who are taking classes right now in Finland in how to cook outside, how to survive without electricity, and how to keep their families safe when their men head off to war. This is real. That's actually happening right now. There's videos of it. Not making it up. Women in Finland are preparing for war. They're learning how to teach their children at home. They're learning survival skills. They're learning how to hunt. They're preparing everything they can because they feel that their men are going to be taken away. It is a very serious situation. And I hope that people see it as serious of a situation as I do. And there's a lot of things, where we could see a draft. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope I'm overreacting, thinking there could be a draft. I'm really curious why none of this is on the news. If you listen to mainstream news, they're not talking about any of this stuff. And I don't know why. Maybe they don't want to cause a panic. I would really like to know. I would really like to know. That could change, of course, because we have Elon Musk, who is truly thinking about buying MSNBC. It was a joke. Now it's not so much of a joke. And good morning, Tony. Let's see. Allison says, look into the volcano grill. Can use propane, wood, or charcoal. Great for Dutch oven cooking. Yes. And Allison, I have a whole setup. If you guys saw my backyard right now and all the different grills and smokers and things I have, I would be perfectly fine cooking outside as it is. But don't forget, if something crazy does happen, I was getting ready to move on, but I'm going to backtrack for a second. If something crazy happens, and let's say the first thing that's going to go down is the power grid, the very first thing you lose is going to be your power. They're not, no one's going to be launching missiles into the United States. Could they? Yes, not Russia, but North Korea could. It's not going to happen. They don't need to launch missiles into the United States to destroy us because we will destroy ourselves from within. What will happen is all they have to do is shut our power grid down. If they shut our power grid down, then guess what? Water treatment facilities cannot run. Internet, you will not have internet. Everything will just stop. It'll be like going back to the 1500s, quite honestly, with nothing. And then what do? You have to be prepared to have water. You have to be prepared to have food and have a means to cook it. Those are the things that should be on your mind. And you have to have a way to protect yourself, because guess what? Even if you are very prepared, there are a lot of people out there who are not prepared. Most people don't even know any of this stuff is even going on. Those people are not prepared. They have no idea what's happening, and they will be all a big surprise to them. And and then as soon as they realize what's happening, guess what? They're going to come for your stuff. So not only do you have to be prepared yourself, but you have to prepare for the possibility that people are going to come and take what you have. And Allison says, I am ready to homestead, and it might be happening sooner, Allison, than you think. Good morning, Rob. And Todd, I'm coming over for a deep fried turkey. I do have a turkey fryer, by the way. I haven't used it yet because last Thanksgiving it was raining and I didn't want to blow up my entire town. But maybe this year, maybe this year. But be prepared, people. Be prepared. It never hurts to be prepared because not just about a war, but anything can happen. And at any moment, if there's a long-term power outage, you should have enough items in your home to where you can survive. If not for 3 months, 6 months, you really just don't know. You don't know. But it's better to be safe and prepared than not. And whether it's war or not, because I'll tell you, if we do end up in a war here in the United States, that's what we're going to have to worry about. We're going to have to worry about the chaos, because when our power grid goes down, guess what? The grocery stores are closed. Stores are going to be looted. Their gas stations are going to be closed. They're going to be looted. Things are going to get pretty darn crazy. And as you guys saw during Hurricane Helene, it does not take long for things to go crazy and for chaos to ensue and for people to start attacking each other. It does not take long for that to happen. So please keep that in mind. And so some of the things, let me think. I want to make sure I covered everything I was planning on covering, and I think I believe that I have. The things to keep an eye on today is, if you're going to stay on the Ukraine Russia stories, is to keep an eye out for what's happening, because Russia has a very large inventory of drones that are very high tech that can create drone swarms. Now, these things are so high tech that these drone swarms can not only swarm and attack a common goal, but they can kind of think for themselves. They're programmed to attack a certain goal and then to reform and keep attacking, which is kind of interesting. A person doesn't necessarily have to be behind the controls to give them a new objective. These swarms of drones just have their own objective and move around and replace themselves to make sure that that objective is taken care of. Todd says there are still people living in tents in North Carolina when we send billions over to Ukraine. That's part of the reason why Trump won, is exactly that, because people knew this government does not care about the people. Doesn't. There are still hundreds of people, maybe some people say thousands, missing in North Carolina, a couple in Tennessee, a couple in Georgia. And I know these people are missing. The government can't tell me it's not true, because I see the posts that these families make. I read their comments, read their posts. They still have no idea where their loved ones are. And so these people are still missing, and people are still living in tents. And I just read a report the other day that I couldn't verify, that a baby, an infant, died in one of these tents because it's so cold out there. Families cannot keep them warm. There's not enough RVs to go around, and there's not enough housing for these people. I don't know what's going to happen over there, but it could easily be any of us. So we always need to keep those things in mind. So I've got a lot to cover, and I know not a whole lot of time, but Elon Musk, was talking about, it was kind of started out as a joke. And I still think he's trolling people. I don't really think he plans on buying MSNBC. I really don't. And I don't think there'd be any purpose in him doing that. But, maybe he would, because he might feel like I do that Fox National, while they do talk some conservative stories, they're not really on board with us. They're just a flip side of the same coin. They will let their hosts go so far, which is why they got rid of Tucker Carlson, of course, because you can only go so far on Fox National. And their hosts are not allowed to talk about election fraud or some of this other stuff. Now, some of the hosts in the evening, like Hannity or Levin, they buy blocks of time. They are not part of the network. They buy blocks of time. So they put on their own shows. They're paying for those shows. So that's a little bit of a different story. So, and the same was true for Tucker Carlson as well. And you know what? He left. He seems to be doing better. He has more followers. I think he's doing fantastic. And if Elon Musk buys MSNBC, I think it will be something like we've never seen. It will not be even Newsmax, and I love Newsmax. I love America Online News. I think MSNBC, if Elon Musk bought it, would be so much bigger than that. And even though I think he's trolling people right now, I don't think he really plans to. I think it's funny. And Rachel Maddow about lost her mind. Lost her mind. She was like crying in the air. I'm gonna show you this little clip. Good morning, Cindy. She literally lost her mind. Look at this.
To at least 3. Can we put up the graphic of this? I think I'm gonna have to hand this off. Yeah. Sorry. That does it for us tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow. No. Oh.
She's crying. She's so upset over a post Elon Musk made. And you can, look on Elon Musk's page on MSNBC to see the meme that he posted. But I really do think he's just trolling people. I don't think he really plans to buy MSNBC. People talk about him buying InfoWars. I don't think he plans to buy InfoWars. He has assisted with the Alex Jones with the court case, but I don't think he plans on buying MSNBC, and I don't think he plans on buying InfoWars. I might be surprised. I hope he does buy MSNBC, but I don't see it personally happening. But I think he's having a great time trolling all of these people, acting like he's going to buy it. But one thing that Trump, though, is buying, he did patent, it's called TruthFi. I don't know if you guys have heard about this or not. TruthFi is going to be, speaking of crypto, Dogecoin up to 42 cents. Well, I should say it went up to 47 cents, almost 48 cents before it started dropping back down. I thought for sure it was going to hit 50 cents, but it didn't. So TruthFi is going to be Donald Trump's platform for you can purchase crypto. He's going to have a wallet where you can hold your crypto. So it's going to be an exchange and a crypto wallet. I think that's going to be very interesting. He filed the patent for that last week. And Todd says, I think Elon has better things to do. He doesn't need another. No, he doesn't. And not only that, but being involved in Trump's administration, I don't really think that he will be able to own a media company. Now he could say, hey, I'm going to back out of Trump's organization, the administration, in any official capacity, and then he could go back. Because think about this too. He's going to have to figure out what he's going to do already with Tesla and with SpaceX, because SpaceX has all of these government contracts, and he is not going to be able to be part of Donald Trump's official administration and continue to run SpaceX. That's a conflict of interest. So he's got a lot of decisions to make. It sounds like he's made them, in my opinion, as far as working with the Trump administration, but I don't know how far he's going to go. I don't know how far he's going to go with that. Something that, speaking of earlier, I was talking about Florida Congressman Mike Walz and why I'm very disappointed with his statements about us being on the same team as Biden, and how we also support long range missiles being used against Russia. I'm very disappointed with the statements that he made, as much as I'm trying to trust the process. But then I hear this, this really upset me. Now, this is no fault of Trump. John Thune, of course, Senate Majority Leader. This is just crazy. He has appointed Mitch McConnell, as the head of the Rules Committee. Now, we have all known that John Thune is not someone that we support. He is definitely not someone that we support. Of course, Donald Trump and all of his advisors wanted that spot to Senate Majority Leader to go to Rick Scott, which would have been a perfect choice. We know they had a secret vote. They did not have a public vote. They're all a bunch of cowards. They had a secret vote. And we know some of the people that we have admired did not vote for Rick Scott. It's highly unfortunate, but they didn't. Some of them voted for Thune, some voted for Cronin. In the end, John Thune won. He and Cronin both very bad choices. And it's unfortunate that Rick Scott didn't get it. But now, Mitch McConnell, why is Mitch McConnell even involved in anything government related at all? I'm sorry to say, I'm not trying to bash him. It's not his fault. He's an older man. He is suffering some serious health situations. I don't know what exactly because they don't want to tell us anything, but we've all seen him freeze up in these different interviews. Why is this man being elected to any position at all? Why? It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. And now he's going to be the head of the Rules Committee. That's a very important position. That's a very important position. So, going into a Trump administration, yes, we have a lot of control over a lot of things, but we don't have control over everything. And there's still going to be a lot of obstacles along the way. And one of them, I hope, is not Mike Waltz, because I'll tell you what, we didn't vote for Biden. We didn't vote for Biden policies. I don't know about you guys. I am not going to support Biden policies. I don't care if the war in Ukraine is over minerals or not. I feel like we should be energy sufficient here, just like some of you guys have said. We don't need Ukraine for that. We need to establish peace, because what I'm really tired of is policies in which we look at that. What I just said earlier, what was it? Where's the number again? 900, nearly a million, nearly a million, 906,500 Ukrainian service members lost in this war. 462,000 of them just being in 2024. I do not support any war that is about power, money, oil, minerals, gas, whatever it is they have, not in support of it. And none of us should be. And it's hard for me to believe that the Trump administration is going to take office and support these same policies. I mean, haven't we plundered enough countries? Isn't that what we're all against? Plundering other countries when we have enough right here in our own country to be self-sufficient. We have enough oil, we have enough minerals, we have everything we need right here. We don't need to kill millions of people to remain in power. And I hope and pray that Trump administration, that's not their plan. I hope that somebody has a good talk with Mike Waltz before he becomes our national security, national intelligence director, and has a good talk with him and say, hey, you need to rephrase that, because no, we are not one with the Biden team. And no, we do not support an escalation towards Russia that's going to lead us into World War III. I don't know where they stand, but there's a lot going on. And part of the reason why we're not part of the Biden administration, speaking of liberal policies, this is going to blow your minds. This is something that we have to fight against. This is socially liberal policies. These people should be hunted down and eliminated. Take a look at this video. This one's really going to bother you guys. But you know what? This is what Europe is about. Now all of a sudden it's here in the United States. Just take a look at this.
.org. It's short for virtuous pedophiles. Not virtuous as in they're better than everyone because they're attracted to children, but virtuous like having moral standards and a sexual orientation that they have no control over, like the rest of us. Before you get all worked up, I'm talking about pedophilia, not child molestation or rape. Pedophilia is the sexual attraction to children. It's a paraphilia. There's a link to more information about it in the description, videos I've made in the past explaining the kind of human diversity and development. Molestation and rape are different. These are abusive actions that often have nothing to do with attraction. Many child abusers are actually sexually attracted to adults, but they act out on children. Meaning you probably don't object to pedophiles because you're compassionate and rational, but you may loathe child molesters and rapists because they violate people. I personally try not to judge.
What is happening? What is happening here? Seriously, what is happening here? we've heard about these people for a long time. And I know there's a term for it. You guys can remind me of what it was. I'm kind of glad I forgot. But it is people who think it's okay, that pedophilia is okay. If you're a pedophile and you want to have an intimate relation with a child, that's okay. You're still a good person as long as you're not acting out on it. Oh, minor, what was it? Minor attracted. I know there's a term for it, minor attracted something or another. It is absolutely disgusting. And these people try to rationalize the way they think. And and trust me, even the people in the LGBTQ community do not support these people. These are the rarest of the rare on the very far left. But there are people out there who have this movement going on for quite a while now, where they are trying to rationalize pedophilia. They're trying to say it is perfectly acceptable that these people, they were born this way. It's okay that they like children and want to have intimate relationships with children. It's perfectly fine. They're not bad people until they actually molest someone. This is what we're dealing with. This is why when I hear people say that we're one with the Biden administration, I'm like, no, we're not. We absolutely are not in any way, shape, or form part of the Biden administration because this is the type of thing that they support. I have no problem with people being gay, again, or trans, or whatever you want to be. But if you start messing with children or you're trying to force your beliefs on me, that's when you've crossed the line. Then I have a problem. You do not force anything on me. And you know what? Pedophilia is absolutely not okay. It's not okay. And what's really bad is they're promoting these ideals to children. And they're telling children if you have sexual feelings for minors, it's perfectly fine. You're not a bad person. It's disgusting. Cindy says Francis House School District is fighting Francis House School District. Oh, and they've still not voted on a bathroom policy. Well, that's probably pretty hard to do under a Biden administration because the Biden administration, if you don't openly support these different types of policies, like letting boys in the girls' restroom or in the locker room, then you lose your Title IX funding. Very difficult right now for public schools. No matter how the school feels about the situation, it makes it very difficult for them because they really rely on that Title IX funding, and so therefore the Biden administration has made it very difficult. Now, if I were the administrator of a school or if I were part of a school district, I would say I don't care what the Biden government says, we are not doing this. But then of course they risk, and some schools have lost funding because of it. That's why all of this has to change. All of it has to change. And we voted for Trump for a reason, and that was to protect our country, not to get into these absolutely ridiculous policies. It's insane. And when I saw that video, I thought, what is happening? And it's not the first time I've heard about these things. This has been going on for a long time. We're trying to make it seem like all of this is normal. If you want to dress like a kitty cat and go to school, and you want to ask and demand that a special accommodation be made for you. Speaking of Francis Howell School District, speaking of that, you put in a litter box, right? That some of these kids want litter boxes in the school because they're kitty cats and they don't want to use the regular restroom where the humans go. It is insane. And what I don't understand is why don't they take it a step further and say, okay, because of the Biden policies, if this child wants a litter box, I have to supply them a litter box. Well, why don't they go that step further and say, okay, if you're a cat, we're going to start serving you cat food at lunch. But oh no, they can't do that. That's where the line is drawn. And then there are teachers who are reprimanded because they're not meowing back to these students who are cats. It is the craziest thing I've ever heard. And now we have all these furries having their parties all over the place. And it terrifies me. Here in my own town, I'm very worried. We have a mayoral election coming up, and our city is going to go one of two ways. We have one mayor who supports having drag shows down on Main Street, and we have one mayoral candidate who, of course, is more conservative. And it's like, while I don't have a problem with the gay community by any means, I want them to keep their rights. I want them to be able to live in peace and however they want to live. I don't care what you do behind closed doors. Doesn't matter to me. Do I want drag shows down on Main Street? No, I don't. I will do anything I can to make sure that doesn't happen. Do I want furries walking around my streets? Absolutely not. And see, this is where it starts. It starts in the communities, in your community, but we let it get out of hands. I don't know how this happened, but at some point we let it get out of hand. And now we have to face these threats at a national level. And now we have people trying to say pedophilia is okay. And Karen says, I still would like to feed them cat food at lunchtime, as would I, as would I. Some people would say under the Michelle Obama lunch rules, her new lunch program, that the food's a lot like probably cat and dog food anyway. And that's another thing that I hope Trump overhauls is the lunch system, because our kids are not getting proper nutrition. And it's really sad in this country that we can give Ukraine $183 billion and another 275 million on the way, by the way. And we can give them all this money, but yet we have people in our own country starving, children starving. And it's highly unfortunate that there are children in our country who have parents who are just bad parents. And I'm not talking about the people who can't afford food, who are trying their hardest. I'm talking about the many, many parents who they get food stamps and they sell them for drugs or for alcohol. Their kids are left unattended. They don't care that these kids don't have food. And then, of course, we have the parents who do work really hard. We know the prices right now of food are absolutely outrageous. I know there are families who are really struggling to feed their families and may come up short. And hopefully they're, all taking advantage of food banks and other services available. But I know that's also not easy to do. And especially if you don't have transportation or other, means. I hope that the Trump administration works out a plan for children to make sure that there are no children in our country starving or going without medication. We really, really have to take care of our elderly and our children. To me, that's number one. The rest of us, we can figure it out. But the elderly, really, and the disabled and the children, we have to stand up for them. And let's see, Kevin, it's all Satan. We all have had demons. That is why you need to pray, asking God to help you fight your demons. Pray, pray, pray. You've got that right, Kevin. It all starts at prayer, because without that, we truly have nothing. Patty says, let's see, Ukraine is having women on the front lines. They do have women on the front lines. Part of my issue with Ukraine, and first of all, I support the people of Ukraine. The people who are citizens of Ukraine, they don't like this any more than we do. And they are, lots of citizens have lost their lives. Just think, over 900,000 service members, that doesn't include civilians, have lost their lives in Ukraine. Think about all the civilians that have also lost their lives. You know why? Because on day one, Zelensky handed out thousands of weapons to civilians, to children. And he said, go out and fight for your country. It doesn't matter if you're a woman or a child. I'm going to give you a weapon and I want you to go out and fight for your country with no training. And so, therefore, when Russia started coming through, we had women and children out, fighting with troops as they came through their neighborhoods. So yes, there were civilian casualties, because you can't put a gun in the arm of a child and say, go out and fight your enemy. That's not okay. And I don't know how the Biden administration, or anyone for that matter, could think that that's acceptable. And the blood is definitely on our hands, because we allowed this all to take place. The United States, we do have a lot of power. And we could have stopped all of this on day one, and we just chose not to. So that blood is on our hands. And I know I read a report early this morning that said that, again, I talked about this earlier, about 150,000 Ukrainians heading back to their homes in Mariupol and in the Donbass area, areas that Russia now controls. And they say the reason why they're all going back is because a lot of them fled to Kiev and other outlying areas, and they're being treated terribly because they're Russian speaking, which means they're allegedly being, Russian sympathizers. And these people had to flee again back out to Mariupol and back out to the Donbass region, because the Ukrainians hate anyone that speak Russia. And they have like a hotline they can call and report people who they think are Russian sympathizers. Just this last week in Ukraine, they went around and took down all the monuments that at one point, testify to that region, used to be Russia, of course. And so they've taken down their monuments, they got rid of their churches. They are just completely cleansing the entire area of anything Russian related. And so a lot of these people are leaving. There's a lot of talk that at some point down the line, if Trump does create peace in Ukraine, there's a lot of talk that the Ukrainian citizens are going to somehow stage a coup and oust Zelensky, and then they are going to join BRICS because the people of Ukraine allegedly do not want to be any part of NATO. They all want to go to BRICS. So we'll see how that plays out. I can't confirm any of that, but I am hearing it for some pretty good sources. So I think it's certainly a possibility. And there's a lot of things also going on the. I only got about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to go through some of this. We've talked so much about deportations. We know mass deportations are coming up, but you know what? There's one situation that we face in this country, and that is a lot of the people who we need to deport, particularly criminals that came over from Venezuela. Venezuela will not take any deportations. They will not. There are several countries will not take deportations. So we can round all of these people up, but we have nowhere to send them. And I thought this was really odd, but I heard that there's a possibility we're going to send them to Rwanda. I have absolutely no idea why. I'm going to look into that further, but I hear that we may send all of these people to Rwanda, but I don't know why. I think that's like one of the strangest statements I've heard in a really long time. Like, what does Rwanda have to do with anything? Why are we sending them to Rwanda? Maybe some of you know. I don't get it, but that is what I'm hearing. That's the talk I'm hearing. And let's see, Tammy says, do you think buying more meals is a good idea? Are you talking about more meals for kids? If so, then yes. Oh, I'm sorry. MRE meals are a good idea. I'll tell you what, Tammy, I already have some, but I'm not buying MREs. I know that people should have freeze-dried foods, and you can dehydrate foods. Don't do anything. The way I feel about it, don't do anything that's expensive. If you have to go out and spend a lot of money on MREs, then no, don't do it. If you have a way to dehydrate food, then yes, do that. If you have a way to freeze dry food, then yes, do that. There's a lot of people out there right now who are making big batches of, let's say, chili or soup, and those people are taking their chili and soup and they are freeze drying it. You can sometimes find somebody in your community where you guys can work together. Think about what Colonel Adams is doing with the Washington Guard. They have thousands. They somehow have access to a freeze dryer. They have, I think, 7 or 8 years worth of freeze dried foods in case something crazy happens. And and then it may take that long, quite honestly, in some circumstances. But there are ways you can dehydrate food and freeze dry food. We want to be careful because if you have to flee your home, you can't load up 300 jars of soup, right? You can can soup all you want, but you can't load that up in your vehicle or in a backpack. You need to find things that are lightweight. So if you have the money to buy MREs, then it's probably a really good idea. If you don't have money to do it, then I would say no, because a lot of people buy MREs. My son's father, when he passed away, he had buckets and buckets and buckets of MREs. And we do have them here. They're not expired or anything, but I would have never bought them. I think it's just a huge waste of money, in my opinion. Now, Costco, I believe they have a bucket of MREs. I think it's $80. It's a very popular item, but I think there's other ways of dehydrating food and freeze drying food to where you don't have to have that crazy expense. So that would be my option to tell you is to find another way. And so back to deportations. And we're going to talk on Wednesday, because Wednesday we're going to know how things are going to play out with this war situation, because tomorrow's that NATO meeting. So we'll see how all this goes. But before we do, I want to talk a little bit about deportations, because we have these sanctuary cities who are saying absolutely no, we are not going to cooperate with deportations. We are not going to do it. We don't think it's constitutional, blah, 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 whatever it is they have to say. And then we have Tom Homan, of course, who's going to be our border czar. And he's saying, oh, yeah, if you break the law, sanctuary cities, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I'm going to show you two sides of this here. We, of course, have our lovely Chicago.
Waste of power if he were to go down that route. In fact, it would be small and soft. President-elect Donald Trump has the White House. He has the Senate. He has the House of Representatives. He has the judicial branch. Right now, President-elect Trump has literally more power than any president has had probably in, oh my God, how far can we go back? Decades and decades with that amount of absolute control. With all of that power, not addressing reparations in this country, not addressing public education in this country, not addressing climate change in this country, not addressing real substantive policies around immigration reform. He doesn't want to do any of that with all of his power. He wants to create a structure and a system where there is upheaval and chaos. It would be a waste of power if he were to go down that route. In fact, it would be small and soft. The president-elect should get big and large and strong, like we are in Chicago.
Yeah, like you are in Chicago. Okay, here's what Tom Homan has to
Title
say.
8, United States Code 1324, III. Read about that and don't cross that line because it is a felony to harbor and conceal an illegal alien from ICE. Read the statute, don't cross that line.
That's a warning from Tom Homan.
That is a warning to sanctuary cities. Don't cross that line. Don't think about harboring people in these sanctuary cities, because if you do, guess what? You're probably going to be held criminally liable. So just don't do it. Just don't do it. And while I was playing those videos, I was trying to look to see if we have any update situations taking place. And I'm seeing the only thing I'm really seeing on updates as far as the Russia Ukraine situation, like one of you just said a few moments ago, that more women are being called to the front lines in Ukraine because you know what, they're running out of men. You know, there have been a lot of women already in the front lines of Ukraine, but of course they're calling up more, and they're calling up disabled people now too. And I talked to you guys the other day, I think it was on Friday, where they're getting ready to also draft in. They have about nearly 400,000 HIV positive civilians in Ukraine, and there are plans to draft those. So far, the HIV has allowed them to stay out of war, but now they're calling up the HIV positive folks. They're calling in more women. People who have a disability status are being called now to the front lines. I think this is kind of a last stand because they are really running out of steam quick. And then we have the ATACMS coming through again last night. I believe that Ukraine's launched about 30 of these ATACMS long-range missiles. We know that Russia is going to respond at any time. We're not sure how. They're thinking that they're preparing for another Oreshnik missile to come in to Ukraine. And I know the last night Russia sent some swarms of drones into Ukraine. There's a lot that's going on. Tomorrow, again, the NATO meeting. We're going to learn tomorrow, one way or the other. Are we escalating? They're not going to come out and say, oh, we're in World War III. We're going to learn, are we going to escalate against Russia, or are we going to back off, awaiting a Trump presidency? One of two things are going to happen tomorrow. So on Wednesday, when we come in, hopefully Colonel Joe Adams will be joining us. We're going to be talking about exactly that. Where are we going next? How much preparation? I'm already preparing. I don't know about you guys, but how much preparation do we really need? Do we need to worry about going into World War III, or can we relax a little bit knowing that Trump is going to promote peace? We're going to know so much more on Wednesday. But in the meantime, every minute of every day, everything's changing. Everything's changing. Last night, we know again that Ukraine launched these long-range missiles into Russia. We have France now. Of course, Britain has already sent over their long-range missiles. Now we have France doing the same thing. Things are continuing to escalate literally by the hour. So keep an eye on it, and I will be updating you guys on Wednesday. Just a reminder, I will not be here tomorrow because I have to work, but I will be back on Wednesday. So much to talk about. Then, of course, Thursday is Thanksgiving. Gosh, it's hard to believe that that's just a couple days away. And then I'll be back on Friday. So it'll be a little bit of a short week. So we'll have lots to talk about here. Karen, you have a good morning also. I hope all of you guys have a great day. And I'm Tabitha with Tabs on Tap, and I will see you all on Wednesday.